examining the role of religion in the lives of the people of classical Athens, it is important to emphasize how the way that they experienced and interacted with religion differed from what is commonly meant by religion today. Their interaction with the gods did not exist within a sphere of its own. For example, the concept of the separation of church and state, commonly preached in the United States, was non-existent, as religion was heavily intertwined with the governing of Athens. The city-state was actually responsible for maintaining the balance between what concerned humans and what concerned the gods. Publicly hosted festivals were a staple, serving both as a religious and state event. These events were also the source of meat for those who were unable to normally afford it, providing protein they normally would not have had. Thus, the festival fed both the body and the soul. While these gatherings were important to the identity of Athenians, the stories behind them played a key role as well, as these events were what brought the stories to the forefront of the participants' minds. Performances reenacted the stories and reminded them what was important about Athenian identity. The shaping of this identity through myth can be seen well in the story of Theseus. According to Rhodes, prior to the establishment of Cleisthenes' democracy, Theseus was best known for slaying the Minotaur on Crete. While this still remained his claim to fame, after this change in the politics of Athens, his story evolved to include more encounters with criminals and monsters along the road that he must overcome on his way to Athens. With Athens growing a unique identity, its people wanted to see their hero on par with the likes of Heracles, and his story came to share many similarities. In these stories, Theseus' wit and sophistication are highlighted against uncivilized opponents. So great was his newfound emphasis that a story of Theseus giving all of his festivals to Heracles as a reward for rescuing him from the underworld emerged in order to retroactively explain this greater popularity of Heracles. In this way, Theseus, as the ideal male Athenian citizen, was created. Clever defender of Athens and superior to outsiders due to his civilized values. Here, religion is encountered as an example of what an Athenian should strive for, our values of defending the city-state and the importance of Athenian culture far back to the time of heroes. With these factors in mind, it becomes easier to understand the experience with religion of a person growing up in Athens. Religion was deeply intertwined in daily life, with aspects of it influencing the proceedings of their city-state and everyday lives. Stories that we consider part of their religion today were essential in influencing cultural ideals and governmental proceedings. In turn, their lives and values could also influence the shaping of their myths. From here, we will move to examine this through the lens of the lives of twins in Athens, allowing for the investigation of different life stages, as well as how these life stages differ based on gender.
A warm summer night in Athens brings the birth of twins, Asteria and Alexandros. The twins have special significance as the family they are born into is part of the genos of the priestess of Artemis Brauronia, with Artemis being a twin herself. This family is one of good fortune. Their father was a wealthy merchant and citizen.
To some poorer households, a daughter was a burden and unable to continue the family name and estate. Fortunately for Asteria, her father chose to keep her and raise her alongside her brother, Alexandros.
However, it was her brother who brought pride and promise to their home. Though the life of Alexandros would look far different than that of his sister Asteria, his early childhood would have also been spent in the home. As the family's oldest son, from birth he is valued as their heir and a member of Athenian male society. Soon after Alexandros' birth, he is introduced to his father's phratry, or kinship group, during the Apatoria festival, which occurred every year. On the third day of the festival, fathers of boys born since the last festival offer a lamb or a sheep as sacrifice, which is shared by the members of the phratry as long as no one objected to the birth taking place in accordance with the laws.
Asteria remains home learning from her mother how to spin, weave, and manage the household. As her skills progressed, she would help her mother create textiles for clothing and home furnishings. Between time spent with her twin and other educated members of the household, she was able to achieve a reasonable level of literacy secondhand. At 13, Asteria joined a group of young girls as part of a chorus for the Panathenaea in honor of Athena. It is said that the movements and dance pleases the gods and reminds them of the beauty and harmony that Athens possesses. Asteria has been dreaming of being chosen to be part of the chorus ever since her mother explained their customs and traditions around the holiest days of the year in Athens, the Panathenaea. It taught her discipline, grace, and bonds of sisterhood that carry them through to womanhood. This was not the only festival that she was able to participate in. Before the end of her childhood, she and her mother had planned her visit to the Brauernion, a sanctuary dedicated to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, childbirth, and infancy. The goddess had protected her throughout her childhood, and now that Asteria was ready for the transition into maidenhood and marriage, she and her mom had to propitiate the goddess. At the Brauernion, she participates in a rite of passage called the Arctia, where she dances and plays the role of a bear. This ritual marked the end of her childhood and prepared her to move into her adult life as a married woman.
Infancy ended at around age 3 for Athenian boys, but the next major milestone in Alexandros' life is age 7, when he begins his education. Alexandros is part of the first few generations to be educated by the Athenian state, rather than by private tutors and an overseeing male slave, pedagogos, arranged by his parents. He is educated in a communal schoolroom environment with other male children, learning literature, music, and athletics. The educational environment is highly competitive, and Alexandros competes against other boys at multiple festivals, including the Great Dionysia and the Apolline Thargelia festivals, and the Panathenea. As Alexandros practices his athletics, he is often surrounded by portrayals of heroes like Theseus wrestling Kirkion, inspiring him to train harder so he could one day bring similar honor to both Athens and his family. While most Athenian boys ceased their classroom education at age 14, due to his family's wealth, Alexandros had the opportunity to continue his education at the Lyceum. Dedicated to the god Apollo, the Lyceum was one of Athens' 3 great gymnasia. While the Lyceum was a place for him to continue his education and participate in debate, the gymnasia also served as a public space for sacrificial feasts. During this time, Alexandros takes part in the Hermaea festival. There he wins his first race and is able to make a sacrifice on his own for the first time.
At 14, Asteria's father arranges a marriage for her with a member of his phratry. Her new husband, Petros, was 30 years old and served as a high-ranking officer in the Athenian army. The wedding is a very important event for her, as this marks the beginning of her womanhood. Marriage ceremonies were often very elaborate and important. Before the marriage ceremony starts, Asteria sacrifices a lock of her hair and her childhood toys and clothes to the gods. She then goes to bathe. After marriage, she spiritually transfers from being a daughter of Artemis to a daughter of Aphrodite. Alongside her spiritual transition, she also transitions to caring for and running her new household. As a woman, Asteria's new rule in Athenian society is to stay in the home and have children. In the year of her marriage, Asteria and her mother have special significance in the Thesmophoria, a festival exclusive to women. They mirror the roles of Demeter and Kore in Kore's abduction and marriage to Hades, the event celebrated in the festival. In the future, this festival will serve as an important, consistent meeting time for the two, in which they are not expected to remain exclusively connected to the household of their husbands. The Thesmophoria also held importance through the ritual judgments that occurred while the courts and assemblies were closed. Through the events held in ritual, Asteria has the opportunity to participate in debate and judicial decision-making, a space normally only available to male citizens in Athens.
At 16, Alexandros is presented to his father's phratron once again, on the 3rd day of the Apatoria festival. The phratry give their approval and eat the meat of the sacrificial animal, the Chorion, making Alexandros an official member. This is his first step toward achieving full citizenship. The same year, Alexandros also takes part in the Panathenaic Games, an athletic competition part of a greater Athenian festival dedicated to Athena, the Panathenea. The games included a variety of individual and group events, some more common, like wrestling, boxing, and chariot races, and some more obscure, like the Pyrrhike, or Pyrrhic dance, a choreographed imitation of battle formations. The youths in Alexandros' tribe win the Pyrrhic dance contest and are rewarded 1 ox for their victory. Through the Pyrrhike, Alexandros imitates the victory dance of Athena after her victory in the Gigantomachy. This version of Athena's victory was exclusive to Athens, and this event was exclusive to Athenians, making the Pyrrhike a point of unity not just with their goddess, but also between Athenians. The famous hero Theseus was tied in with the festival too, credited with expanding it to all of Athens, bringing his associations with Athenian unity to the forefront of the participants' minds.
Asteria's early adult years get off to a rough start. At 15, she becomes pregnant with twins of her own. Unfortunately, the babies are born premature and the medical care they receive is not sufficient to keep them alive. Infant deaths were incredibly common at the time, with some studies suggesting that the infant mortality rate was as high as 40%. Before she has time to fully grieve them or to try for another child, her husband Petros is called to fight against the Spartans. She is left in charge of the estate, caring for her husband's property while he is off at war, as Penelope does in the Odyssey. Soon, her luck takes a turn for the better, and when a vacancy in the position of priestess of Artemis Brauronia opens up, she is selected to fill the role, leading young girls through the same rituals she had participated in only a few years earlier. Greece's priests and priestesses were not a true professional caste, and seldom devoted their entire life to religious activity. Serving a cult was regularly a part-time occupation, taken on either for life or for a fixed term.
Upon reaching 18, Alexandros is required to complete 2 years of highly regulated active military service, during which Alexandros takes a binding oath with the gods as his witness to not shame but protect their land. This is followed by 10 years of informal service, which included participation in athletic games, visiting sanctuaries, providing escort at festivals and processions, and keeping in touch with the spirit of his home. This period of informal apprenticeship helps to prepare him for his role as a citizen. The Greeks' combined emphasis on state-sponsored athletics and citizenship created a population with a strong and cohesive mindset, valuing the needs of the polis over the individual. Upon completing his military service, Alexandros follows his father's profession and becomes a merchant. Most wealthy families either had vast estates to manage or were in trade. Before undertaking a trading voyage, Alexandros and his captain visit a shrine to make offerings to Poseidon. Alexandros states that he will dedicate 1/10 of the voyage's earnings, perhaps in the form of a statuette, if the voyage is successful.
Asteria continues her priestesshood for several years through the return of her husband and the birth of her first 2 healthy children. 2 girls, a seeming gift from the goddess she served. Over the years, she helps to organize festivals and rituals at the Brauroneion, prays to Artemis on behalf of the city of Athens, greets visitors, and manages administrative tasks for the sanctuary. By the time she reaches 30, she has served over a decade as a priestess and has 2 young girls who are quickly approaching the age where she will have to say goodbye and see them off to their own lives and husbands. After seeing her daughters through the Arctia, she steps down from the priesthood and devotes her time to her husband and her home, where she gave birth to an heir. Asteria and Petros pray regularly to Artemis as well as Hermes, protector of young boys, during the early years of his life, in hopes that he will prosper into a strong young man.
Unlike Asteria, Alexandros marries at age 30. For men, marriage was a business arrangement. Alexandros experiences fewer marriage rites than his young wife, Hermia, as marriage was more of a major life transition for women. Men are often already sexually active prior to marriage, either with men or women, and marriage is primarily for the production of heirs. Following the prescribed rules of marriage was one of the ways the bride and groom gained favor with the gods. Alexandros inherits his father's trading network when he marries. He becomes the master in his new household and is responsible for making the appropriate daily offerings to the 3 household gods: Zeus Ktesios, the protector of household wealth, Zeus Herkios, protector of boundaries, and Apollo Aegiens, protector of the entryway.
As Asteria ages, her role still primarily revolves around childcare, but her position sees a transition as she no longer can have children of her own, but has experience considered valuable for the raising of children. Additionally, knowledge of herbal remedies, not as witchcraft but as something beneficial, is another skill associated with old women in the Homeric hymn to Demeter. The social and religious events in her life do not see much change with her age. However, she has a slightly different status, earning her respect, especially from younger women. Asteria dies of old age when she is 60. By the time of her death, she had been a widow for 20 years because of the age gap between her and her late husband, and her son had grown old enough to inherit the estate. When she died, her grave marking was inscribed with a description for her love for her husband and her virtue. Additionally, due to her former position as priestess of Artemis, there is a carving on her grave of a woman bearing a temple key representative of her divine appointment.
Alexandros ages, and his lifespan is much shorter than ours. He has been the head of this household for 10 to 20 years, but now a final illness takes his life. His family quickly prepares his body for burial. Until he is buried, his family believes he is between two worlds, and therefore at risk. Others are at risk also, because death is considered a polluting event, lasting several weeks, making the household repulsive to the divine. Therefore, Alexandros' house is marked with cypress branches to warn visitors against entering. The funeral preparations include washing and wrapping the body, and a pre-dawn funeral cortege to the burial site. Alexandros is buried on his estate, where his family can visit, leaving him gifts of cake, myrtle, and drinks, and tend to his gravesite. As a wealthy man, Alexandros is buried with a prayer and a vessel containing ointments. A modest amount of grave goods may be placed in his grave, and the burial site is marked with a stone pillar. The careful attention of his family helps guide him to his journey to Hades, where he will spend the rest of eternity.
Through their lives, as different as they are, it is clear to see how worship of the gods touched the lives of both the twins. Although religion was at the center of life in everyday Athens, the word religion itself is an invention from a later time, and the associations that we bring with us when hearing it do not accurately describe the ancient Greek view of religion. Instead, it functions simply as a fact of life within the home and outside it. At home, there were daily offerings made to the statuette in the courtyard or to Hestia, goddess of the hearth. At a civic level, there were grandiose civic festivals such as the Panathenaic Procession or the Great Dionysia. Every Greek felt the responsibility to participate in a religious life in order to generate notice and hopefully bring to them the goodwill of the gods.